It sounds almost impossible. But there are tribes that truly live inside volcanoes, not near them, not around them. Inside their smoking craters, where the air shimmers with heat and the ground breathes fire. Here, danger is not an enemy, it is a neighbor. These people have built their homes where others see only death. They farm the blackened soil, drink from crater lakes, and perform sacred rituals at the edge of boiling earth. Every rumble, every plume of ash is a message from the mountain, one they have learned to understand like a second language. These are the Volcano Tribes, fearless communities bound to the fire, where life and death dance on the rim of the world. This is their story. Afar, Erta Ale Volcano, Ethiopia. In the scorched belly of the Danakil Depression, where the sun blisters the earth and salt stretches like an endless mirror, the Afar people walk through fire. Here, in one of the hottest, harshest places on the planet, they have carved life from lava and silence. Where others see a dead zone, the Afar see memory cracked, glowing, alive. Erta Ale, the smoking mountain, has burned without rest for centuries. A lava lake churns within its crater, never still, never cold. At night, it pulses red, like the open eye of the earth. To the outside world, it is a marvel. To the Afar, it is home. Their connection to the volcano is older than borders, older than maps. They know the scent of sulfur before the wind changes. They read the tremors in the ground like warnings in a drumbeat. Fire is not feared. It is respected. It is a living presence, one that demands humility and ritual. The volcano does not erupt without cause. It speaks, it warns, it remembers. Nomadic in movement but rooted in spirit, the Afar navigate these alien landscapes with camels laden with salt, their caravans trailing across molten plains where no tree grows. They mine the ancient salt lakes by hand, lifting slabs of white crystal in a land where water itself is scarce. Their economy is not one of abundance, it is one of endurance, one of a survival written into their bones. And yet, even in this crucible of flame and salt, threats gather not from volcanoes, but from men. Foreign companies eye the minerals beneath their feet. Governments chart roads through sacred paths. Climate change tightens its grip, drying wells that already thirsted. Still, the Afar remain. Faces carved by wind, eyes fixed on the horizon, feet steady on burning earth. They are not just survivors, they are keepers of a world born in fire. And in the flicker of Erta Ale, their story still glows. Isarog Agta, Mount Isarog, Philippines. Where mist clings to ancient trees and the air hums with cicadas and birdsong, Mount Isarog rises like a sleeping giant draped in green. Its slopes are steeped in shadow and light, in rainfall and river song, in myths that walk on 2 feet. And among its folds, the Isarog Agta live quietly, reverently, always listening. Their world is not made of streets or walls, but of trails woven by deer, of clearings found only by memory, and of footpaths etched by generations of bare souls. Here, the forest is not backdrop, it is breath. It feeds them, shelters them, teaches them. They forage for wild yam, gather medicinal herbs, trap birds with cunning learned from their elders. Each act is both survival and ceremony. Mount Isarog is not merely a mountain, it is an ancestor. Its rains wash away more than thirst. Its winds carry voices. The Agta believe it watches, that it remembers. And in return, they walk its ridges with care. They speak to it. They offer tobacco, rice, words in the old tongue. To harm the mountain is to sever something sacred. Children grow up chasing monkeys through the underbrush, learning bird calls before reading letters. Their education is not in textbooks. It is in the rustle of leaves, the track of wild pigs, the echo of distant waterfalls. This is a knowledge system older than the nation that surrounds them. But pressure mounts at the forest edge. Logging interests creep in with chainsaws and claims. Conservationists mark territories with laws that forget the people who live within them. Tourism rises like mist, beautiful and dangerous. The Agta are offered roads, homes, relocation. Safety, they're told. Opportunity. Yet what they lose is not just a place. It is a language of living that has no translation. The Agta do not own Mount Isarog. They belong to it. And to ask them to leave is to ask a river to abandon its source. But they endure. Beneath the canopy, along the moss-slick trails, in quiet defiance, in deep belonging. Aeta, Mount Pinatubo, Philippines. There was a time when the world forgot Mount Pinatubo existed until 1991, when it reminded everyone with a sky-darkening roar. The eruption sent ash halfway around the globe. Rivers vanished. Towns disappeared beneath gray. But amid this devastation, a story deeper than disaster endured the story of the Aeta, the mountain's oldest children. For the Aeta, Pinatubo has always been more than a volcano. It is a spirit, a guardian, a place of teaching and shelter, of warning and wonder. They lived in its folds for generations, building light homes that whispered with the wind, planting root crops that clung to the mountainside, tracking game through bamboo groves and shadowed trails. Their intimacy with the mountain is not poetic, it is practical. They knew how it moved, how its animals fled, how its birds hushed before the earth stirred. And so, when Pinatubo awoke in rage, it did not take them by surprise. Their elders read the signs. Their families moved. And while cities scrambled in panic, the Aeta had already slipped into safety, guided by memory older than seismographs. But when the ash cleared, it was not just the land that had changed, it was their place in the world. Government resettlement camps offered concrete homes far from the mountain. Promises of comfort were made, but the Aeta could not breathe in walls. Their children grew sick. Their rituals were banned. Their names replaced by ID numbers. Some fought their way back to the slopes, back to the trees, back to the soil where their ancestors walked barefoot and free. But now even those paths are watched. Mining threatens the mountain's bones. Legal titles deny ancient claims. And the Aeta, who once knew every whisper of the forest, find themselves silenced in the name of development. Yet still they resist. With stories, with footsteps, with presence. They gather where trees still stand, where the mountain still speaks, where the wind still carries the old songs. Because they do not fear the volcano, they fear forgetting it. Ngati Rangi, Mount Ruapehu, New Zealand. In the heart of Aotearoa, cloaked in mist and snow, Mount Ruapehu rises like a guardian of breath and fire. Its flanks ripple with ancient glaciers, and its peak holds a sacred crater lake that sometimes boils with fury. But beneath this towering volcano lies a heartbeat that does not belong to rock alone, it belongs to the people of Ngati Rangi. To Ngati Rangi, Ruapehu is not a mountain. It is their ancestor, their sky father, their silent witness. They do not climb it for conquest, nor name it for ownership. They approach with karakia prayers woven into wind. Every snowfall is a gift, every rumble, a voice. Every stream flowing from its side carries not just water, but memory. Their identity is bound to its breath. The manga is not a backdrop, it is the beginning of every story. Elders speak of it with reverence, as if naming a beloved grandparent. Rituals echo from generations past, calling on the mountain's strength, its mana, to guide and protect. But colonization rewrote many of these truths. The land was mapped, claimed, and mined. The volcano became a tourist postcard, a ski resort, a hazard to monitor. Sacred lakes were probed with science but not with ceremony. And still, Ngati Rangi stood. They fought not just for land, but for voice, for the right to speak to Ruapehu again and be heard. And when they won legal personhood for their sacred waters, giving them rights, guardians, dignity, it was more than a legal victory. It was restoration. Now, they continue their kaitiakitanga, their guardianship with patience, watching the mountain breathe, listening for the wisdom that rises with steam. Manobo, Mount Kalatungan Volcanic Range, Philippines. In the shadowed highlands of Bukidnon, where clouds cling to ridgelines and waterfalls fall like veils from the heavens, the Manobo people move through the forest with reverence. Here, within the Kalatungan Volcanic Range, the land is not just fertile, it is sacred. And each tree, each stream, each whisper of wind carries the memory of fire and rain. Mount Kalatungan does not tower with violence, it hums with life. Its quiet strength is not in eruption, but in renewal. The Manobo do not fear it, they honor it. For within its slopes are their ancestors, their spirits, their gods of soil and sky. To the Manobo, nature is alive in ways science cannot quantify. Mountains are elders. Rivers are sisters. The forest is a vast, breathing scripture. Their chants rise with the morning mist. Their dances echo the rhythm of rain. And when they harvest, it is with hands that ask, not take. This volcanic land sustains more than crops. It sustains culture. The Manobo believe that spirits dwell in every grove and spring, and it is through respectful rituals that balance is kept. Offerings of betel nut, woven leaves, and whispered prayers are given to the unseen. The mountain listens, and it provides. But now, that balance is under threat. Roads cut through sacred groves. Dams silence the songs of rivers. Logging wounds the skin of the mountain. The Manobo, once hidden by elevation and forest, now find their world shrinking. Yet they resist not with anger, but with ritual, with law, with storytelling. They are reviving language, reclaiming rights, and replanting what was lost. In Kalatungan's shadow, they remain not just as survivors, but as stewards of a deeper truth. The mountain watches, and so do they. Pit River Tribe, Medicine Lake Volcano, USA. Far in Northern California, where pine forests whisper and obsidian cliffs catch the light of dawn, the Medicine Lake Volcano sleeps beneath a skin of silence. It does not spew lava or thunder in rage, instead, It broods gently, a vast shield volcano whose fire moves slowly, invisibly, beneath the earth. And to the Pit River tribe, it is not asleep. It is sacred. The land here is not measured in acres, but in echoes. Obsidian flows that once spilled from ancient vents now lie like frozen rivers of black glass. Steam rises from hidden cracks in the ground, and the wind carries the scent of sulfur reminders that the spirit of the volcano still breathes. For the Pit River people, this is a place of medicine, of stories, of ceremony. Long before the word volcano was spoken here, it was known as a place where earth and sky met in quiet power. The mountain healed. It taught. It connected. They gathered herbs from its meadows, held ceremonies at its heart, prayed beside bubbling springs, where ancestors are said to still walk. Even the obsidian sharp, dark, beautiful, was not just a tool, but a gift from the land. But that sacred silence has been threatened. Geothermal developers have drilled, seeking heat to power machines. They see energy, not ancestry, resource, not reverence. And though the mountain does not speak in eruptions, it speaks through the Pit River people. They have stood firm, filed lawsuits, held ceremonies, raised their voices in defense of what cannot be replaced. To them, Medicine Lake is not a fuel source, it is a relative, and relatives are not exploited. They are honored, so they continue to pray, to protect, to resist. Beneath the sleeping volcano, their spirit burns. Modoc Tribe, Medicine Lake, and Mount Shasta area, USA. In the high volcanic plateaus of Northern California, where snow-fed springs rise from black basalt and the earth hums with buried fire, the Modoc people walk a land stitched together by stories. Here, between the sacred stillness of Medicine Lake and the towering soul of Mount Shasta, the Modoc have lived for generations, rooted not just in place, but in spirit. The land is not scenery, it is memory. Medicine Lake is not just water, it is a place of healing, of vision, of power. Modoc shamans once fasted beside its shores, seeking dreams shaped by steam and stone. The mountain, too, looms with meaning. Mount Shasta is not a peak, it is a presence, a bridge between worlds, a keeper of thunder and silence. In Modoc tradition, these places are alive. They are listening. The spirits that dwell here are not myths, they are kin. Every trail was walked before. Every rock holds a name. The Modoc do not ask the land to yield, they ask it to teach. And in return, they carry its lessons in story and song. But violence came, wrapped in the flags of settlers and the steel of soldiers. In the Modoc War of 1872, the tribe made their last stand in lava beds, forged by ancient eruptions, twisting tunnels and jagged stone craters that became a fortress. They fought not for land alone, but for the right to belong to what they had always belonged to us. And though the war ended in blood and exile, the Modoc spirit did not vanish. Today, they return to these sacred places to pray, to speak the old names, to remind the volcanoes they are not forgotten. Between Medicine Lake and Mount Shasta, the earth remembers, and so do the Modoc. Shasta Tribe, Mount Shasta, USA. Rising over forests like a dream cast in stone, Mount Shasta pierces the sky with snow-crowned stillness. To many, it is just a mountain majestic, photogenic, mysterious. But to the Shasta people, it is more than a landmark. It is the center of their world, their beginning, their belonging. This is not a mountain you conquer. It is one you approach with reverence. The Shasta believe that creation began here, that their ancestors emerged from within the mountain itself. Its caves, its springs, its slopes, they are not just features of the land. They are sacred veins of their origin story. The air around Shasta feels different, sharper, quieter, as if the earth itself is pausing to listen. And in this silence, the Shasta people remember. Elders speak of spirit beings who still dwell in the high places, watching, waiting. Ceremonies once took place near ice-fed streams, where offerings were left in gratitude for life, for rain, for guidance. The mountain nourished them. Deer in the meadows, salmon in the rivers, berries along its forested skirts. But it gave more than food, it gave identity. Every child born beneath Shasta's gaze inherited not just land, but legacy. Colonial expansion changed much. Reservations were drawn, languages silenced. The mountain was renamed, rebranded, claimed, but not forgotten. Today, the Shasta people return in prayer and protest. They walk the old paths. They speak to the mountain as they always have. For to forget Shasta would be to forget themselves, and that is something they will never do. Wintu Tribe, Mount Shasta Volcanic Region, USA. Where the Sacramento River is born from snowmelt, and the wind carries whispers from glacier fields, the Wintu people have dwelled for millennia. In the shadow of Mount Shasta's sacred crown, they have lived not just beside nature, but within its sacred weave. To the Wintu, Mount Shasta is a sacred being, a mother, a guide, a place of ceremony and song. The mountain is not visited, it is communed with. Her springs are pure, her air is prayer, and her stories are endless. From her flanks flow healing waters, each stream a lifeline of memory. The Wintu say the mountain speaks, not in words, but in rhythms. The crackle of ice, the sigh of wind, the echo of eagle cries. And through generations, they've learned how to listen. They have their own creation story, carried in the bones of the land. Their dances once echoed through alpine meadows. Their songs rose with the morning fog. They gathered medicine along ancient trails, lit fires in moonlit groves, and honored the balance of all things, never taking more than what was given. But that balance is now tested. Commercial bottling threatens the sacred springs. Developers eye the mountain slopes for profit. And the Wintu, who have always been protectors, are once again called to defend what cannot defend itself. Still, they rise. With ceremonies, with resistance, with love. They hold fast to the belief that Mount Shasta is alive, and that those who listen can still hear her heartbeat beneath the snow. For the Wintu, this land is not part of their story. It is the story. Karuk Tribe, Mount Shasta Volcanic Region, USA. In the dense, breathing forests of Northern California, where rivers twist like stories through mountains scarred by fire and ash, the Karuk people live in rhythm with land shaped by ancient flame. Their territory stretches beyond what maps show, across canyons and over lava flows into the spiritual shadow of Mount Shasta, where the world, they say, still remembers how to pray. To the Karuk, the land is not silent. The rivers sing, the stones whisper, the fire remembers. Every bend in the Klamath River, every peak touched by snow and time, holds echoes of ceremony. Their songs, once carried on cedar smoke, were sung to heal the world, to maintain the balance between what burns and what grows. The volcanic soil here holds old stories, stories of medicine, of salmon returning like memory, of fire used not to destroy, but to renew. The Karuk are fire people, not just survivors of its wrath, but masters of its grace. They burned the land with care, coaxing food from forest, bringing life from ash. Mount Shasta is not theirs alone, but its spirit flows into their stories. Its breath touches their ceremony. The volcano is a teacher stern, sacred, never forgotten. Even when colonization came like a flood, trying to drown what could not be erased, the Karuk held on. In songs, in seeds, in ceremony. Now they return to their fire traditions, fighting not just for cultural survival, but for ecological healing. In an age of climate collapse and megafires, they offer a path forward that begins in the ashes. Because they've always known, fire, when honored, gives life. Sheep eaters. Yellowstone, USA. In the steaming heart of Yellowstone, where geysers erupt like earthborn spirits and the land breathes in sulfur and stone, the Tukudika people, known as the sheep eaters, once lived in silent dialogue with a land most dared not claim. Here, among boiling springs and smoking earth, they carved a life not in defiance of nature, but in deep reverence. Yellowstone is no ordinary wilderness. It is a volcano cloaked in forest, a world of trembling ground and whispered warnings. And yet, the Tukudika moved through it with ease. They knew the trails between thermal pools. They drank from hot springs. They listened to the mountain's stomach rumble and understood its moods. Their name comes from their reliance on mountain sheep, nimble, sacred, and swift. But their survival came from knowing the land's secrets. They crafted tools from obsidian glass left behind by past eruptions. They built warm shelters from stone. Their lives were proof that harmony could be found even where the earth cracked and boiled. To them, this geothermal zone was not dangerous. It was divine. Spirits lived in steam. Stories rose from the ground with every hiss. Their knowledge of the region was unmatched, but it was dismissed. Branded as primitive, they were erased from maps, written out of Yellowstone's origin story, as the land was preserved without the people who preserved it for generations. But Yellowstone still remembers. Obsidian artifacts lie buried beneath pine needles. Hot springs still bubble where elders once prayed. And slowly, the truth returns that the first stewards of this volcanic realm were not rangers or tourists, but Tukudika families, wrapped in fur and firelight. They lived where the earth spoke loudest, and they understood what it meant. Gunditjmara, Budge Bim Ancient Volcano, Australia. In the green folds of Western Victoria, where lava once flowed like ink across the landscape, the Gunditjmara people shaped fire into food and stone into home. At the foot of the long-sleeping Budge Bim volcano, they built a legacy not of war, but of water. An ancient aquaculture system more complex and older than most civilizations care to remember. Here, the land does not roar. It remembers. Budge Bim, High Head, is the ancestral spirit who rose in fire and solidified into stone. From his breath came the lava. From his hands, the wetlands. And in those wetlands, the Gunditjmara carved a world. They did not merely adapt to volcanic change, they used it. Long before concrete or steel, they built stone channels, weirs, and traps to harvest eels sacred, nourishing, and central to ceremony. These systems, some over 6,000 years old, remain as proof. The Gunditjmara were engineers, ecologists, and storytellers bound to land that once burned and now flows with water. Their villages dotted the lava plains. Their stories were etched into the bends of creeks and the cracks of basalt. Buj Bim was not just their past, it was their structure, their system, their soul. Colonial forces tried to silence this brilliance, painting indigenous life as nomadic, primitive, lost. But the stones did not lie. The land held the truth until the world caught up. Now, Buj Bim is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, not just for its geology, but for the living culture it still cradles. The Gunditjmara walk those lava fields still, teaching, reclaiming, building again with the same patience their ancestors used to shape fire into life. Because here, in the bones of an ancient volcano, the world is waking up to a truth the Gunditjmara never forgot. Their stories rise like steam, fragile, powerful, and often unseen, but they matter. So if these voices moved you, if these lands felt sacred even through a screen, then help us carry them forward. Like the video, share it with those who've never heard these names. Comment with the places and people you want the world to remember. And subscribe because these stories are far from over. The Earth is still speaking. And together, we can make sure someone is listening.